Hi all, my name is Rieki. I'm part of a team that's building Seeds, the conscious currency, and Haifa, which is also building a decentralized autonomous organization, or we also call it a decentralized collective organization. However, first I want to say, being part of the first DACAthon of the decade, that's pretty incredible. We would have loved to have one of our teams here, but unfortunately, we were just launching our token sale yesterday with the full moon, and we were head down doing our own sort of DACAthon. So we really appreciate what's going on here, and we're actually going to try to get a team together today and join you guys. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit more today about governance. I believe this is the most important aspect of any DAC, and this is how any organism senses and responds to its changing environment. Now, there are many ways to do governance, from electing leaders to autocratic control to various forms of democracy and so on. However, I only have a few minutes, so I'm going to speak to some designs that Seeds and Haifa have employed for its various DACs. First off, one token, one vote is a plutocracy. It's essentially governance by the wealthy, and it allows any system to be co-opted by wealthy attackers. Now, this only applies if that token is exchangeable, but I can get into that next. Further, if governance is directed only by those with wealth, then the decisions are likely to be short-sighted and aimed at increasing wealth over the short term, as these benefactors are actually looking for quick gains and typically just to exit the system. So if your DAC exists solely to make short-term profits, then this might be a very fine route and design to take. But as we've seen in other decentralized organizations that had greater goals than just short-term profits, then this has actually led to a lot of decline in their ability to meet those goals. So this is actually why we really recommend that governance tokens are non-fungible, or if they are purchasable, there's other ways. Quadratic voting is very interesting, or quadratic voting, but also quadratic purchasing of tokens. And what that means is if one account is trying to buy tokens that are in the form of governance, that those tokens become more value or more expensive to buy the more that they have. But in order to be able to do that, we have to talk about one of the most important aspects that we believe in governance, and that's actually decoupling the equity token of the project and the voice token of the project. So anyway, that was kind of a lot of information, but what I'm going to do is actually talk about two designs that we have, one that's in Seeds and one that's in Haifa, and that'll give you some ideas about different ways of running governance. So I'm going to start off with Seeds. So Seeds is a large-scale decentralized organization, and what it's meant to do is actually provide an alternative to the nation-state model. So it's meant to encompass, millions of people, maybe even billions and beyond. So the forms of governance that are required to manage such large numbers of people and help such large numbers of people participate are going to be different than those ones that are just part of corporations that might have hundreds to thousands of people. So that's the first consideration with any governance, is what scale of community are you working to govern. Okay, so within Seeds, we've decoupled, as I was talking about before, the Seeds token and the trust token. So trust is what we call our voice token, our voting token within the Seeds system. And you actually earn this the more that you're contributing. So Seeds is very unique in that a lot of the inflation of the Seeds currency actually goes to the users and the people of the network by how much they're contributing, and that's a wide number of ways. And we call this the harvest. So part of the harvest is earning Seeds, but the other part of it is actually earning these trust tokens to be able to participate in governance. And we've actually limited the users of this trust token to those who have earned the citizenship designation. And that requires a series of web of trust, authentications, and reputation building within the system before you're actually allowed to govern. So we've designed this in a way to get rid of the proxy accounts. Because that's one of the other elements, is that if you're having a non-fungible token, because you're trying to have one account essentially represent one person so that they can't gain too much control, then you need to have a system in place that can make sure that one person can't have 50 accounts and then just have the same effect. And then what we've done with our governance is actually split it up within seeds, that there's local governance and then global governance. And that could be mirrored that, the nation state, and then within it, the micro-states that make up that nation state. So using the US as an example, you have the Federal Reserve, the one, and then Utah, California, etc. as the smaller entities. So this is, people are voting on things that govern them based on the global system and based on their local instance. And this doesn't have to be geographically based as it is in seeds. In your particular DACs, it could be based off interest. It could be based off of different projects. I mean, there's a million different ways to federate and fractal out this governance, but it is very important that you're pushing governance to the smallest degree possible to the people who really need to be making that decision. If every governance decision has to go through everyone's face and eyes, then they're not going to be able to have the bandwidth or time to be making good decisions, and governance likely won't happen. Great, so that was, again, quite a bit of information, but I'm going to move on from seeds right now and actually talk about HIFA. So HIFA is probably more similar to a lot of the organizations that you guys are intending to set up. So HIFA is actually building what we call a DAO nursery or a DAO factory. And we have a platform where people are able to run up and start their own DACs, DAOs, and governance instances. But we've designed more of ours based off holacracy. So holacracy has a lot of really powerful principles about how people can make decisions better together, organize the... We had a little bit of a glitch there. So either way, HIFA has done similar to what Seeds does, is what's decoupled the equity token within HIFA and the voice token within HIFA. So equity can be bought by investors, outsiders who don't really necessarily know what's happening within HIFA itself, but want to start earning dividends off of holding these tokens. They buy up the HIFA equity. But that doesn't necessarily give them a voice in how it's governed and run. And we believe this is very critical because those who are buying up these tokens and investing in it likely have no concept of what's going on within the organization. So they're the least, capable, and they're the least able to be able to make functional decisions. And what we've done is actually distribute voice to those who are contributing directly to the project. And in that sense, it's those who are holding roles and actually driving the organization forward. And then in our case, voice actually deteriorates over time. So it has a half-life of about 1 year, so that people who have joined the organization early don't get an undue amount of voice that actually deteriorates, so that about equals out that people who are in the organization for an average of 3 years, it's about the most voice you're going to have, and that makes you basically senior in the organization. And again, this is very important because the amount of voice that you're earning is directly related to how much you're contributing to the project. And we believe those who are contributing with their time and their knowledge and their capability and their dedication, not necessarily just their financial wealth, are the ones who are making the decisions. And that's what's helping the purpose of the organization actually be driven forward, opposed to it being driven towards short-term interests such as profit maximization or a quick turnaround. Great, so those are just some of the main topics I wanted to touch on with governance, is the concept of being able to decouple the equity token and the voice token. We think that's an incredible power that blockchain's bringing forward. Second, making sure that if you have a non-fungible token, that there's some form of web of trust or proxy defense so that people can only have one account that's earning it. And then third, how are people earning that voice? This is where we can get really creative. So don't just have it that you buy voice. We can get really, really interesting in how you're actually distributing voice to meet the purpose of your organization. And that's about everything, guys. I wanted to close this off by saying if you are interested in DACs and DAOs and this sort of governance, we're doing quite a bit of work in this arena, and we're always looking for very interested people. And yeah, we'd love to be able to play with you guys and create some new, what we call regenerative and thriving foundations for a global society, and kick off the year of 2020, the year of perfect vision, with this movement and renaissance towards helping us get there. If you want to find out more, check us out at joinseeds.com. We have some Telegram groups, also just seeds_community. And yeah, we'd love to talk with you all. Good luck.